Breaking news: California governor is panicked as Kroger shuts down a major distribution center in California. This is 2 hours ago. California is facing growing supply chain disruption that could reshape how groceries are made, how much families pay, and who ultimately bears the cost of public decisions. Basically, what's going on, Jim Newton said to a lot of world leaders some very disrespectful things. So, yeah, California gonna pay for it. Plus, 300 plus Starbucks is shutting down too out of California as well. So, yeah, let's get into the video, shall we? Plus, teachers quitting too. That's all new there. Let's get into the video, shall we? Alrighty.
California is about to experience a supply chain disruption that could make the pandemic shortages look like a dress rehearsal. Not because of a virus, not because of a port strike, but because the governor's own regulatory agenda just collided head-on with the economic reality of running a grocery distribution network, and one of America's largest supermarket chains just blinked. Kroger is shutting down major distribution centers across California, and the fallout is spreading faster than Sacramento can spin it. I'm Sophia Miller, and on this channel, we don't wait for the press release version of the truth. We follow the money, we track the timeline, and we ask the questions that make powerful people uncomfortable. If you value independent investigative journalism that cuts through the noise, subscribe right now. Hit that like button. And here's what I need from you in the comments today. Tell me how much you're already paying for groceries in your state. Real numbers. Because what's happening in California right now is a warning signal for the rest of the country, and we need to document this in real time before the narrative gets sanitized. Here's the thesis, and it's simpler than anyone in Sacramento wants to admit. California imposed the most aggressive warehouse worker mandate in the nation, demanding climate-controlled facilities, ergonomic redesigns, and quota transparency systems with compliance deadlines so tight that upgrading was cheaper than operating. Kroger did the math. They ran the numbers on retrofitting aging distribution centers across the state versus consolidating operations outside California's borders and absorbing the longer haul distances. The spreadsheet told them to pull the plug. Now hundreds of workers are getting pink slips, store managers are being told to brace for supply delays, and the governor's office is scrambling to control a story that exposes the hidden cost of legislation written by people who've never run a logistics operation. This isn't about labor rights versus corporate greed. It's about what happens when regulatory mandates ignore the economics of razor-thin margins in a commodity business. And somebody is going to pay the price, and it won't be the politicians who wrote the law. Let me take you through how we got here, step by step, because the timeline tells you everything you need to know about who knew what and when. 3 years ago, California passed Assembly Bill 2183, the Warehouse Worker Protection and Dignity Act. The language was beautiful: worker safety, environmental justice, ending exploitative quota systems. The reality was a compliance avalanche. The law required temperature-controlled environments in all facilities exceeding 200,000 square feet, mandated ergonomic assessments for every workstation, imposed penalties for undisclosed productivity metrics, and set a hard deadline, January 1st of this year. Full compliance or face daily fines starting at $50,000 per facility. In plain language, the state just told every major distribution operation, rebuild your buildings or write us a check. Kroger operates 7 major distribution centers in California. 4 of them were built in the 80s. These are sprawling concrete warehouses in Compton, Tracy, Riverside, and Stockton, facilities designed in an era when climate control meant fans and loading docks meant open air. Retrofitting a single building to meet AB 2183 standards wasn't a matter of installing new thermostats. It meant tearing out racking systems, reconfiguring workflow, upgrading electrical infrastructure, installing industrial HVAC capable of cooling 500,000 square feet in 100-degree summers, and redesigning workstations under new ergonomic mandates that reduce density per square foot. Engineering estimates for full compliance across all 7 centers, $460 million. Timeline to complete the work without shutting down operations, 18 to 24 months. available time when the final regulatory guidance dropped. 11 months, let that sink in. Then came the math that nobody in Sacramento wanted to confront. Kroger's grocery distribution operates on margins most people would consider fictional, between 1.8 and 3.2%, depending on category mix and fuel costs. That $460 million retrofit bill wasn't a one-time hit. Financed over 10 years at current rates, it added $43 million annually in debt service. Spread across California operations, that translated to an additional cost per case shipped that wiped out profitability on half the product categories moving through those buildings. The executive team looked at the numbers and asked the question every CFO asks when a regulation breaks the business model: what if we don't play? Within days, Kroger commissioned a logistics optimization study. The consultants ran the scenarios. What if we consolidate California distribution into 3 next-generation facilities in Nevada and Arizona, states with lower land costs, no AB 2183 mandates, and business-friendly tax structures, and just absorb the longer truck hauls into California stores? The model showed break-even in year 3. Add in the savings from avoiding California's commercial property tax rates, the lower workers' comp premiums outside the state, and the ability to route freight dynamically across a Western region network instead of being locked into California-only warehouses. And suddenly the out-of-state option wasn't just viable, it was financially superior. By March, the decision was made. Kroger's executive leadership signed off on Project Streamline, an internal code name for the consolidation plan. The corporation announced it would close 4 California distribution centers, Compton, Riverside, Tracy, and a smaller facility in Fresno, and transition operations to 2 newly expanded megacenters, one outside Reno, Nevada, and one in Goodyear, Arizona, just west of Phoenix. Combined, these 2 facilities would handle 72% of the volume previously moving through California warehouses. The remaining California centers in Sacramento and Ontario would stay open but operate under a leaner model with reduced headcount. Total job losses in California: 2,140 positions. Total jobs created in Nevada and Arizona: 830. The math didn't balance, and Kroger didn't pretend it did. Translation: California just legislated 2,000 jobs out of existence. The governor's office issued a statement within hours. It called the closures a corporate pressure tactic and accused Kroger of abandoning California workers to protect profits. The press release promised swift action: potential tax penalties for companies shifting operations out of state, an expedited review of Kroger's remaining business licenses, and a legislative working group to explore anti-offshoring provisions for companies doing business in California. What the statement didn't include, any acknowledgement that the compliance cost of AB 2183 had been flagged by industry groups during the comment period, or that the economic impact assessment conducted before passage assumed companies would simply absorb the costs and continue operating. Think about that for a moment. The entire regulatory framework was built on the assumption that a corporation would...
In layman terms, California Governor Newsom fucked all the people up over there. He fucked the jobs up, he fucked the citizens up. Everything, just because he wanted more money. Let that sink in what she's saying to y'all. In layman's terms, he fucked his country up. He fucked that state up bad. Really bad. So that's what it means, okay? I know some people out there are going to be dumb as fuck. Oh, no. Kroger's seen what he's doing. Kroger's, you know what? We're not going to play this kind of dumbass shit. We ain't going to play with this dumbass motherfucker. We're going to leave. Because it's going to cost us more money. Because they had some factories back built in the 80s, okay? It's 2025 and that is 80. There's no way that factory's going to be up to code and everything. Because they want more money. The California governor want more money. That's all it is. Nothing more and nothing less. They just want more money. Okay? If you boil it down to it, that's all it's about is money. The California tax is outrageous and everything. Truly outrageous. You're just trying to get more money out of them. That's all it is. So yeah, gotta get you back to the video here. Now I gotta bring it back up. Ugh. And it's slow. Here you go. Back to the video, shall we?
Choose to lose money indefinitely rather than move. And 6 days later, the ripple effects began. Kroger's store managers across California received internal memos outlining the transition timeline. Distribution from the closing centers would wind down over 90 days. During the transition, stores should expect inventory disruptions, particularly in high-velocity categories, dairy, fresh produce, frozen foods, that require rapid replenishment cycles. The memo included a phrase that sent a chill through every store manager who read it. Plan for potential out-of-stocks in key categories during peak transition weeks. In the grocery business, that phrase is a nightmare. Out-of-stocks mean lost sales. Lost sales mean reduced revenue per square foot. Reduced revenue means corporate starts looking at underperforming stores for closure. Here's where the domino effect accelerates. Those Kroger distribution centers weren't just serving Kroger-owned stores. They also supplied Ralph's, Food 4 Less, and a network of independent grocers who contracted for wholesale distribution services. When the centers closed, those independent operators had to find new suppliers. Fast. Some scrambled to sign contracts with regional distributors. Others couldn't absorb the higher costs and shut down. In Compton alone, 3 independent grocery stores that served food desert neighborhoods closed within 40 days of the Kroger announcement. Residents who relied on those stores now face a 4-mile trip to the nearest full-service supermarket. For families without cars, that's not an inconvenience, it's a crisis. Let me introduce you to Marcela Ruiz. She worked the overnight shift at the Kroger Distribution Center in Riverside for 7 years. Her job was cold storage picking, pulling orders for dairy and frozen goods in a refrigerated zone that ran at 34 degrees. It was hard work, but it paid $23 an hour with full benefits. Marcela has 2 kids. Her rent is $2,000 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment. She drives a 12-year-old Honda Civic with 160,000 miles. When the closure was announced, HR told her she could apply for one of the limited positions at the Ontario Centre, 48 miles away. Her current commute is 11 minutes. The new commute would be 1 hour and 20 minutes each way in traffic. At California gas prices, that commute alone would cost her an additional $450 a month. She did the math. Even if she got the job, she'd be netting less than her current pay after fuel costs. So she's looking for work outside logistics entirely in a labor market where her specialized skill set doesn't transfer cleanly. Translation: AB 2183, the law written to protect workers like Marcela, just made her unemployed. Then the supply chain stress started showing up at the register. By late spring, Kroger stores across Southern California began experiencing the exact scenario the internal memo warned about. Dairy cases running low by mid-afternoon, frozen food sections with visible gaps, produce deliveries arriving a day later than normal, meaning shorter shelf life and higher spoilage rates. Store managers started fielding customer complaints. Shoppers started switching to competitors, Costco, Trader Joe's, regional chains that weren't mid-transition. Kroger's same-store sales in California dropped 4.3% quarter over quarter. For a company already operating on thin margins, that's a flashing red light on the dashboard. Now here's the irony that nobody in Sacramento wants to talk about. The stated goal of AB 2183 was to improve conditions for warehouse workers and reduce turnover in a high burnout industry. But when you shut down 4 distribution centers and consolidate work into out-of-state mega facilities running at higher throughput to justify the capital investment, you don't reduce worker stress, you intensify it. The new Reno facility operates on a demand flex model, meaning workers are scheduled based on real-time order volume with shifts that can be called or canceled with 4 hours notice. That's not stability, that's gig economy logic applied to warehouse work. The workers who move to Nevada for those jobs are finding out that the grass isn't greener, it's just cheaper for the company. Let that sink in. By summer, the political fallout intensified. California's Legislative Analyst's Office released a quiet report, buried on a Friday afternoon, acknowledging that AB 2183 had resulted in unintended supply chain modifications, and that the projected job creation in retrofitting had not materialized. The report stopped short of calling the law a failure, but the data was damning. The state had lost 2,140 direct logistics jobs and an estimated additional 1,200 indirect jobs in trucking, maintenance, and contract services tied to the closed facilities. The jobs created by compliance work, construction, HVAC installation, ergonomic consulting totaled fewer than 300 and were temporary. The governor's legislative working group on anti-offshoring provisions met twice and quietly disbanded. Why? Because the legal analysis came back clear. You cannot constitutionally prevent a company from moving operations to another state. The Commerce Clause doesn't care about your policy goals. Any attempt to penalize out-of-state consolidation would be challenged in federal court and likely struck down within months. So the working group dissolved, the press stopped asking about it, and the story faded from the news cycle. But the consequences didn't fade, they compounded. Here's the next domino. When a major distribution network pulls back, it doesn't just hurt the company and its workers, it stresses the entire regional food system. California grocers who lost their Kroger wholesale contracts tried to shift to alternative suppliers. But California's distribution capacity isn't infinite. The remaining regional warehouses were already running at high utilization. Adding unexpected volume meant longer lead times, higher costs, and prioritization decisions. Smaller retailers got pushed to the back of the line. Some couldn't get reliable delivery windows and cut their product selection just to stabilize inventory on core items. Customers in those stores saw less variety and higher prices as operators passed along their increased costs. Then came the transportation squeeze. Consolidating California distribution into Nevada and Arizona meant more long-haul trucking, trucks running 500 miles round trip instead of 150. That's more fuel, more driver hours, more wear on equipment, and more emissions. Yes, you read that right. A law passed with environmental justice language actually increased the carbon footprint of California's grocery supply chain because it pushed distribution further from end consumers. The California Air Resources Board quietly acknowledged this in internal modeling, but declined to make the analysis public. Why? Because it would undermine the political narrative. Let me introduce you to someone else. Tom Nguyen owns a small grocery store in Stockton. It's a family business. His parents opened it in 1994. Tom inherited it and kept it running by keeping costs lean and service personal. He contracted with Kroger's Tracy Distribution Center for wholesale supply, everything from canned goods to cleaning products. When the center closed, he had to find a new supplier. The closest alternative distributor was based in Modesto and charged 18% more per pallet delivery because Tom's order volume didn't qualify for preferred pricing. Tom tried to absorb the cost. His margins evaporated. He tried to raise prices. His customers, many of them on fixed incomes, started driving to the big box stores outside town. Within 5 months, Tom's revenue dropped 32%. Last fall, he closed the store permanently, his parents' 3-decade legacy gone. The building is now empty, windows soaked, a for-lease sign fading in the sun. So why would California pass a law that produced these outcomes? That's the question you have to ask. And the answer isn't malice, it's disconnect. The legislators who drafted AB 2183 came from districts where logistics infrastructure is invisible. They see the Amazon package on the porch, not the warehouse network that put it there. They see the grocery store shelf, not the supply chain that stocks it. They consulted with labor advocates and environmental groups, both of whom had legitimate concerns. But they didn't pressure test the economic model with the people who actually run distribution networks. And when industry groups raised red flags during the public comment period, those concerns were dismissed as corporate fear-mongering. Here's what nobody is saying. Regulatory policy written without economic literacy is just wishful thinking with enforcement power. You can mandate better conditions. You can impose fines. But you cannot mandate that a business model remains profitable when you've broken the math. Companies will adapt. And adaptation doesn't always mean compliance. Sometimes it means exit. By the next month, other corporations were watching. Amazon began quietly exploring whether its California fulfillment centers would face similar mandates under AB 2183's language. Walmart commissioned its own logistics study. Target started negotiating lease renewals with exit clauses tied to regulatory changes. The message was clear. California had just demonstrated that aggressive mandates could force large-scale operational exits, and every CFO in the country took notes. The legal dimension added another layer of complexity. In August, a coalition of affected workers filed a class action lawsuit against Kroger, alleging that the company had violated California's WARN Act by failing to provide adequate notice before mass layoffs. The case is still in discovery, but early depositions revealed something uncomfortable. Kroger had notified the state labor commissioner's office of the planned closures 73 days before the first layoffs, 3 days beyond the statutory 60-day requirement. Technically compliant, but barely. The workers' attorneys are arguing that the company deliberately delayed the decision to minimize the window for public opposition. Kroger's defense: we were waiting for final clarity on AB 2183 enforcement guidance, which didn't arrive until late. Both things can be true. Here's the domino most people aren't tracking yet: municipal revenue collapse. Those 4 closed distribution centers weren't just employers, they were tax base. Compton alone lost an estimated $2.1 million annually in property and business taxes when the Kroger facility shut down. Riverside lost $1.7 million. Tracy lost $1.4 million. These aren't wealthy cities with budget cushions. These are working class communities already fighting to fund schools, maintain roads, and staff fire departments. When you lose that revenue, services get cut, parks close, library hours shrink. Code enforcement stops responding to non-urgent complaints. The social fabric phrase. And here's the cruelest irony: the communities that lose those facilities are the same communities AB 2183 was supposed to help. The law...
So basically, Cameron Newton fucked everybody up. If y'all don't wake up, this is what happens when Democrats tell y'all promise your shit. This is what the Democrat Party do to people right here in the communities. This is a sign for all the other countries to wake up and get rid of Democrats. Good day.